He thought the badge on his chest gave him the right to be judge, jury, and executioner. Officer Harlan Briggs was the kind of cop who believed he owned the asphalt of Pine Creek, and he had a special kind of hatred for outsiders who drove cars nicer than his. But in the sweltering humidity, Harlan Briggs made the biggest mistake of his life. He didn't just profile a black couple in a luxury SUV. He unknowingly declared war on two of the highest-ranking federal agents in the country. This isn't just a story about bad policing. It's a story about the most satisfying career-ending karma you will ever hear. Buckle up. The heat in Pine Creek pressed down like a wet wool blanket. It was the kind of town where everybody knew everybody's business, mostly because there wasn't much business to know. And at the center of this spider web sat Officer Harlan Briggs. He was heavy in the gut, with a buzz cut that had retreated halfway up his scalp. He wore his uniform tight, the fabric straining against a chest that hadn't seen a gym in years. But he compensated with attitude. In Pine Creek, Harlan wasn't just a patrolman. He was the gatekeeper. He'd been on the force long enough to know which drunk drivers to drive home and which ones to throw in the drunk tank. He had a reputation, one that he cultivated carefully. They called him the hammer down at the local dive bar, the rusty nail. He liked that. Hammers crushed things. Harlan was parked in his usual speed trap, a gravel turnout hidden behind a massive billboard advertising Caldwell's personal injury law. He was sipping a lukewarm sweet tea, sweat beading on his upper lip, watching the interstate traffic trickle onto Main Street. He was bored. Boredom was dangerous for a man like Harlan Briggs. Boredom meant he started looking for trouble. That's when he saw it. An obsidian black Range Rover. The newest model, gleaming so hard the sun bounced off it like a mirror. It was moving slowly, respectfully, doing exactly the speed limit. But to Harlan, that was the first red flag. In his mind, nobody drove the speed limit unless they were hiding something. He squinted, leaning forward over the steering wheel. The windows were tinted dark, barely legal by Alabama standards, but he could make out the silhouettes. Two people. As the car passed his hideout, a shaft of sunlight cut through the windshield. Harlan saw the driver, a black man, broad shoulders, sunglasses, one hand casually on the wheel. Next to him, a black woman, looking down at a phone or a map. The knot in Harlan's stomach tightened. It was that familiar mix of jealousy and territorial aggression. Drug money, he thought instantly. It was a reflex, a neural pathway worn deep by years of unchecked bias. Who else drives a $100,000 car through Pine Creek? Nobody works a 9-to-5 and buys that. He didn't check the plates. He didn't wait for a traffic infraction. He just threw the gear shift into drive. The gravel crunched loudly as his cruiser lurched onto the pavement. "Dispatch, this is Unit 4 Alpha," Harlan mumbled into his radio, not bothering to swallow his mouthful of ice. "I'm pursuing a suspicious vehicle, black Range Rover, heading north on Main. Possible drug trafficking suspicion." The dispatcher, old Mrs. Higgins, crackled back. She didn't ask for probable cause. In Pine Creek, Harlan's gut was probable cause. Harlan flipped the lights. No siren, just the silent strobe light threat of authority. He sped up, riding the bumper of the Range Rover, aggressively trying to spook them. "Run," he thought. "Give me a reason." The Range Rover didn't run. It didn't swerve. The driver signaled right, calmly, methodically. and pulled over onto the dusty shoulder near the old Baptist church. Harlan smirked. Gotcha. He checked his dashcam. It was on, but Harlan knew the tricks. He angled his cruiser slightly so the camera would catch the suspect's door, but the audio could be temperamental if he needed it to be. He unbuckled his seatbelt and adjusted his belt. He rested his hand on the grip of his Glock 17, not drawing it, just letting it know he was there. He walked up to the passenger side window. He preferred the passenger side. It threw people off, made them turn their backs to him. He rapped his knuckles hard on the glass. Bang! 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 The window slid down silently. Inside, the air conditioning was blasting. The interior smelled like new leather and nothing else. The woman in the passenger seat turned to look at him. She was striking with sharp features, hair pulled back in a tight, professional bun, wearing a navy blue blazer. She looked at him over the rim of her sunglasses. Her eyes weren't fearful. They were annoyed. "Is there a problem, officer?" she asked. Her voice was crisp, articulate, no accent. Harlan hated that tone. It sounded like education. It sounded like she thought she was better than him. "License and registration," Harlan barked, ignoring her question. He leaned in, letting his sweaty face invade their cool sanctuary. He looked past her to the driver. The driver was a mountain of a man. He wore a fitted gray t-shirt that showed off arms the size of tree trunks. He, too, was calm, unnervingly calm. "I asked you a question," Harlan said, his voice dropping an octave. "Do you know why I pulled you over?" "We were doing the speed limit," the driver said. His voice was deep, a bass rumble. "Signal was on. Plates are valid. I pulled you over because you have an obstructed view," Harlan lied. It was his go-to, that air freshener hanging from the mirror. There was no air freshener. The driver glanced at the rearview mirror, then back at Harlan. "There's nothing on the mirror, officer." "Don't get smart with me, boy," Harlan snapped. The slur slipped out easily, a casual flex of power. "I said, license and registration now." The woman sighed, a sound of pure exhaustion. "Darius, just give it to him. Let's get this over with." The driver, Darius, reached slowly toward the center console. "Hands!" Harlan screamed, jumping back and putting his hand on his gun. "I want to see hands on the dash now." "I'm getting my wallet," Darius said, freezing his movement. "You asked for ID." "I don't know what you're reaching for," Harlan yelled, playing to the invisible audience of his dashcam, setting the stage for self-defense. "Get out of the car. Both of you. Out." "Officer," the woman said, her voice turning icy. "This is unnecessary. We are complying. Get out or I will drag you out," Harlan roared. He was escalating it. He wanted a reaction. He wanted them to yell back, to resist. That gave him permission to do what he really wanted to do, put them on the ground. Darius looked at the woman. They exchanged a glance that Harlan couldn't decipher. It wasn't fear. It was a silent communication. "Protocol." "Okay," Darius said. "We're stepping out." Harlan stepped back, hand twitching over his holster. He was grinning internally. He had them. He was going to tear this fancy car apart, find the drugs he knew were hidden in the panels, and seize the vehicle. By the end of the day, he'd be the hero of the precinct. He had no idea that he had just ordered the special agent in charge of the Atlanta field office and a senior DOJ civil rights prosecutor out of their vehicle. The heat hit Darius and Nadia Kane the moment they stepped onto the roadside gravel. It was suffocating. but neither of them flinched. They stood by the side of the car, hands clearly visible. "Spread 'em," Harlan ordered. "Hands on the hood." "Am I under arrest?" Darius asked, not moving yet. "You're being detained for investigation," Harlan spat. "Now, do what I told you." Darius placed his large hands on the hot metal of the hood. Nadia did the same. Harlan moved in behind Darius. He kicked Darius's ankles apart, roughly. "Wider." He patted Darius down, his hands aggressive and intrusive. He checked the waistband, the pockets, the inner thighs. He was looking for a weapon or a baggie, anything. He felt a hard rectangular lump in Darius's back pocket. "What's this?" Harlan asked, triumph rising in his throat. "That is my wallet," Darius said, "which contains the ID you asked for." Harlan ripped the wallet out. He didn't open it yet. He tossed it onto the hood of the car. He moved to Nadia. "Officer," Nadia said sharply, "I do not consent to a search. You have no probable cause." "I have probable cause because you're acting nervous and your partner here is combative." Harlan improvised. He reached for her. "Do not touch me," Nadia said. It wasn't a scream, it was a command. It stopped Harlan cold for a split second. "You listen to me," Harlan whispered, leaning into her ear, smelling her expensive perfume. "You're in Pine Creek now. The Constitution ends at the county line. I can do whatever I want." He grabbed her arm and spun her around. He patted her down quickly, roughly. He felt nothing on her. Frustrated, he stepped back. "Stay right there. If you move, I will tase you. You hear me?" He walked to the driver's side door of the Range Rover. "You cannot enter the vehicle without a warrant," Nadia called out. "Probable cause," Harlan shouted back. "I smelled marijuana." "You are lying," Darius said. "Neither of us smokes. This is illegal." "Tell it to the judge," Harlan muttered. He dove into the car. He tore through the center console. Mints, a charging cable, a pair of Ray-Bans. Nothing. He opened the glove box. Insurance papers, rental agreement, Hertz. Rented in Atlanta. Drug runners always use rentals, he confirmed to himself. He reached under the driver's seat. His hand brushed against something cold and metal. Jackpot. Harlan's heart hammered against his ribs. He pulled it out. It was a Sig Sauer P320, black matte finish, standard capacity magazine. He scrambled out of the car, holding the gun up in the air like a trophy. "Gun!" Harlan screamed. "Gun! On the ground! Get on the ground, now!" He leveled his own service weapon at Darius's chest. Darius didn't drop. He stood up slowly from the hood, turning to face Harlan. His face was etched with a dark, dangerous resolve. "Officer," Darius said, his voice deadly calm. "Put that weapon down. That firearm is legal. Get on the ground, or I will drop you." Harlan was shaking now. Adrenaline was flooding his system. "You're under arrest for illegal possession of a concealed weapon." "It's not illegal," Nadia said, her hands still in the air, but her eyes tracking Harlan's trigger finger. "Check the wallet, officer. Open the wallet you threw on the hood." "I don't care about your fake IDs," Harlan yelled. He keyed his radio on his shoulder. "Dispatch, 1018. I need backup. I have 2 suspects at gunpoint. Weapon recovered. Send everyone." "You are making a mistake that will cost you everything," Darius said. "Look at the badge next to the gun." Harlan paused. He looked at the gun in his left hand. There was a small leather holder clipped to the belt he had missed under the seat. He hadn't pulled the holster out, just the gun. "Shut up!" Harlan yelled. Sirens wailed in the distance. The cavalry was coming. Harlan felt a surge of power. He was going to parade these two through the station. He'd be on the nightly news. Two more cruisers screeched to a halt behind him. Dust billowed everywhere. Out popped Officer Parker and rookie Deputy Ellis. "Cuff him!" Harlan shouted. "Resisting arrest. Illegal firearm." Parker, a younger version of Harlan, but with less confidence, rushed Daria. He grabbed Darius's arm and twisted it behind his back. Darius didn't resist physically, but his muscles were so dense, Parker struggled to bring the wrists together. "I'm a federal agent," Darius said loudly, clearly, so the dash cams of the new cars would pick it up. "My badge is in the wallet on the hood. If you put those cuffs on me, you are kidnapping a federal officer." Parker hesitated. He looked at Harlan. "Harlan, what's he saying?" "He's lying," Harlan screamed. "They all say that. Cuff him." Parker snapped the cuffs on. Click, click. Ellis grabbed Nadia. She allowed herself to be cuffed. Her eyes never leaving Harlan's face. She was memorizing him, every mole, every sweat stain, every badge number. "You better check that wallet, Harlan," Parker said nervously, just to be sure. "Fine." Harlan holstered his weapon and snatched the wallet off the hood. He flipped it open. He expected to see a Georgia driver's license, maybe a fake social security card. Instead, a gold shield glinted in the sunlight. It was heavy, detailed. The eagle spread its wings across the top. Below it, bold blue letters set into the gold. Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Special Agent. Harlan blinked. He rubbed his thumb over the badge. He looked at the ID card in the adjacent window. Darius Kane, Special Agent in Charge, Clearance Level, Top Secret / CI. Harlan's stomach dropped through the floor. The world tilted slightly on its axis. The heat seemed to vanish, replaced by a cold chill that started at the base of his spine. He looked at the second wallet. Nadia's purse was in the car. He ran to the car, grabbed her purse, and dumped it on the seat. Another badge tumbled out. United States Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division, Senior Prosecutor. Harlan looked up. Darius was standing by the trunk of the cruiser, cuffed. He wasn't looking at the ground. He was looking right at Harlan. And for the first time, Harlan realized the look on Darius's face wasn't anger. It was pity. "Parker," Harlan croaked. His throat was dry as sand. "Yeah?" Parker asked, holding Darius's arm. "Take him in," Harlan said, his voice trembling. He couldn't admit he was wrong. Not now. Not in front of the rookie. He had to double down. "It's a fake. They're good fakes. Take them in." Parker looked doubtful, but he followed orders. He shoved Darius into the back of the cruiser. As the door slammed shut, separating them, Harlan looked down at the gold badge in his hand. His fingers were shaking so hard, he almost dropped it. He had just arrested the FBI, but he didn't know the half of it yet. He didn't know why they were in Pine Creek. The ride to the Pine Creek Police Department was short, but it felt like an eternity inside the cramped backseat of the cruiser. The plexiglass divider was scratched and yellowed, a barrier between the dirty reality of the back seat and the air-conditioned authority of the front. Darius sat hunched over. He was simply too big for the space. His knees were pressed against the cage, but he didn't complain. He breathed rhythmically, a technique he'd learned during hostage negotiation training at Quantico. Beside him, Nadia was staring out the window. watching the familiar landmarks of the small town pass by. The dilapidated gas station, the high school football field, the endless row of churches. Officer Parker, driving the car, kept glancing in the rearview mirror. He looked terrified. The confidence of the badge was evaporating with every mile. Harlan says they're fakes, Parker muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Got to be fakes. Who carries a badge like that in a glove box? Someone who doesn't want to flash it unless necessary, Darius said from the back. His voice was deep, resonating through the divider. Officer Parker, I want you to think very carefully about your next few actions. You are currently an accessory to a federal kidnapping. If you process us, if you print us, you are cementing your role in this lawsuit. Shut up, Parker shouted, but his voice cracked. You don't talk back there. They pulled into the station's sally port. The heavy metal gate rattled shut behind them, sealing out the sunlight. Harlan Briggs was already there. He had sped ahead, desperate to control the narrative, before Darius and Nadia arrived. He was standing by the booking desk, talking fast to the desk sergeant, a weary man named Sergeant Cole. Drug runners, Harlan was saying loud enough for the whole room to hear. High-level stuff, Cole. Fancy car, concealed weapon, fake federal IDs, real professional counterfeits. I need them processed, separate. Maximum security protocols. No calls until we verify their identities. Sergeant Cole looked up over his reading glasses, chewing on a toothpick. Feds, Harlan. You arrested feds. Fake feds. Harlan slammed his hand on the counter. Don't you get it? It's a cover. They think the badge scares us off. Not to me. I saw right through it. The door to the sally port opened, and Parker marched Darius and Nadia in. Darius walked with his head high, despite the cuffs. Nadia looked like she was walking into a boardroom, not a jail. Empty your pockets, Harlan ordered, walking over to them. He grabbed Darius's arm to shove him toward the counter, but it was like shoving a brick wall. Darius didn't budge until he chose to. You have our wallets, Nadia said coolly. You have our phones. You have our badges, which, by the way, Officer Briggs, you are legally required to verify immediately by calling the DOJ switchboard. Do you want the number, or do you know how to use Google? I don't need your numbers, Harlan sneered. He leaned in close to her face. I'm going to book you as Jane Doe until you give me your real name. You're going to sit in a holding cell with the meth heads and the hookers until you break. My name is Nadia Kane. I am a senior prosecutor for the Civil Rights Division, she repeated, enunciating every syllable. And you are currently violating Title 18, Section 242 of the United States Code, deprivation of rights under color of law. Harlan laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. You memorized the code, cute. Strip search them. The room went silent. Even Parker froze. Excuse me, Sergeant Cole asked. You heard me, Harlan said, his eyes manic. I suspect they are carrying narcotics internally. Standard procedure for drug trafficking suspects. Strip search both of them. I'm not doing that, the female officer on duty, Officer Tara, said from the corner. She stood up, crossing her arms. I'm not stripping a woman in a blazer who sounds like a lawyer because you have a hunch. This is insubordination, Harlan screamed, his face turning beet red. I am the arresting officer. I give the orders. Actually, a new voice boomed from the hallway. I give the orders. Chief Vance Garrick walked into the booking area. Garrick was a relic of the Old South, a man with skin like leather, and a belly that hung over his belt buckle. He wasn't a good man, but he was a pragmatic one. He didn't like noise, and Harlan was making a lot of noise. "What is this circus, Briggs?" Garrick asked, eyeing the well-dressed couple in cuffs. "Chief, I caught big fish," Harlan said, rushing over. "Drug runners, Range Rover, concealed weapon, and look at this." He tossed the badges onto the counter. "Fake federal IDs." Chief Garrick picked up Darius's badge. He felt the weight of it. He ran his thumb over the engraving. He frowned. He'd seen fake badges before. They were usually light, cheap metal with glued-on centerpieces. This badge was solid brass. The enamel was perfect, and it had a chip embedded in the back for secure building access. Garrick looked up at Darius. He looked at the handcuffs. "Who are you?" Garrick asked quietly. "Special Agent in Charge, Darius Kane," Darius said. "FBI, Atlanta Field Office. And if you don't take these cuffs off me soon, Chief Garrick, I will personally ensure that this building is turned into a parking lot." Garrick looked at Harlan. "Did you run the badge number?" "It's fake, Chief. Why would I run a fake number?" Harlan insisted, sweat pouring down his face. "Now run it," Garrick ordered Cole. "I can't," Cole said, typing on his keyboard. "System slow." Garrick looked at the woman's ID, Kane. Same last name. "You arrested a brother and sister?" Garrick asked. "Siblings," Nadia corrected, "and partners on the task force." "Task force?" Harlan scoffed. "What task force? There's no task force in Pine Creek." Darius smiled. It was a terrifying smile. "That's because you're the target, Briggs." The air left the room. "What did you say?" Harlan whispered. "We aren't passing through," Darius said, his voice dropping to a low rumble that vibrated through the room. "We've been tracking a money laundering scheme involving Caldwell's personal injury law and kickbacks to local law enforcement for some time. We were on our way to meet with our local informant when you pulled us over." Harlan's face went white. The billboard. He sat under that billboard every day. He took cash envelopes from Caldwell every week to ignore certain DUIs. "He's lying," Harlan shrieked. "He's trying to scare you. Chief, put them in the cell." Chief Garrick looked at the badges. He looked at Harlan. A liability he'd kept around too long. And then he looked at the phone on the wall. "Uncuff them," Garrick said softly. "No," Harlan yelled. He drew his taser. "Nobody touches them. They are my collars." "Harlan, put the taser down," Parker shouted, drawing his own gun. The station was in a standoff. Police versus police. "This is it," Darius said calmly. "The moment you decide how your life ends, Officer Briggs. You tase me, I sue you. You shoot me, my team outside turns this place into Swiss cheese. Or you put the weapon down, and we talk about a plea deal." Harlan's hand shook. He looked at the chief. The chief had turned his back on him. Harlan lowered the taser. "Uncuff them," Garrick repeated. Parker rushed forward and unlocked the cuffs. Darius rubbed his wrists. He didn't attack Harlan. He didn't yell. He simply reached over the counter, took his phone from the plastic bin, and turned it on. "I need to make a call," Darius said. "Go ahead," Garrick said, wiping his forehead with a handkerchief. "Office line is open." "I don't need your line," Darius said. He dialed a number on his cell. He put it on speaker. The room was silent. "Director's office," a woman's voice answered. "Patricia, it's Darius Kane. Code Red, Pine Creek, Alabama." "Code Red," The voice on the other end sharpened instantly. Status of Agent Kane and Prosecutor Kane. Secure. But we have been compromised. Local law enforcement intercepted us. I was held at gunpoint. Illegal search and seizure. False imprisonment. Are you safe now? For the moment, but I need the team. Bring everyone. ETAs soon. They're holding at the perimeter. Sit tight, Darius. The line clicked dead. Darius looked at Harlan Briggs. Harlan was leaning against the filing cabinet, looking like he was about to vomit. They'll be here soon, Darius said. I'd suggest you start writing your resignation letter, though you won't be needing it where you're going. In the quiet police station, there was enough time to think about every mistake you've ever made. Harlan Briggs sat in a chair in the corner of the booking room. No one was speaking to him. His fellow officers, Parker, Tara, even old Sergeant Cole, had subconsciously moved to the other side of the room, distancing themselves from the blast radius. Darius and Nadia sat on a metal bench, composed. Nadia had taken a notebook out of her purse and was writing furiously. Every few seconds, she would look up, look at Harlan, and make a note. What are you writing? Harlan asked, his voice a rasp. Your indictment, Nadia said without looking up. I'm adding a count for the threat of the strip search. Sexual harassment under color of law adds a nice touch to the sentence. You can't prove that, Harlan mumbled. It's my word against yours. Actually, Officer Tara spoke up. I'll testify to it. Harlan's head snapped up. Tara, you'd rat on a brother. You're not a brother, Harlan, Tara said, her voice shaking but firm. You're a bully, and you almost got us all killed today. I'm not going to prison for you. Traitors, Harlan spat. All of you. Suddenly, the coffee in the mug on Sergeant Cole's desk rippled. A low, thrumming sound began to vibrate through the floorboards. It started soft, like distant thunder, and grew louder. What is that? Parker moved to the window. Helicopter, Garrick said, staring at the floor. Then came the sirens. Not the wail of a single cruiser, but a cacophony. It sounded like an invasion. Tires screeched outside. Doors slammed. Lots of doors. Open the gate! A voice amplified by a loudspeaker boomed from outside the sally port. This is the FBI. Open the gate immediately, or we will breach. Sergeant Cole fumbled for the button. He hit it. The heavy metal door rolled up. The sunlight that flooded in was blinding, but the silhouettes standing in it were terrifying. 6 men in full tactical gear, carrying AR-15RS, moved in a phalanx. On their chests, bold yellow letters, FBI. Behind them walked a woman in a sharp gray suit, flanked by 2 state troopers. This was Assistant Director Victoria Hale. She looked like she ate nails for breakfast. Secure the room, the lead tactical officer shouted. The team swept in. Hands. Let me see hands. Every officer in the Pine Creek station, Garrick, Parker, Tara, Cole, put their hands up, even Harlan. The tactical team moved with fluid precision. They bypassed the locals and went straight to Darius and Nadia. Sir, ma'am, are you injured? The lead agent asked, lowering his weapon, but keeping his eyes scanning the room. We're fine, Agent Rostova, Darius said, standing up and brushing the dust off his trousers. Situation is contained. Assistant Director Hale walked into the room. She surveyed the scene with a look of absolute disgust. She locked eyes with Chief Garrick. Who is in charge here? She demanded. I am, Garrick stammered. Chief Vance Garrick. Chief Garrick, Hale said, stepping into his personal space. You are relieved of command, effective immediately. The Alabama State Bureau of Investigation is taking over this precinct. This is now a federal crime scene. On what grounds? Garrick tried to muster some authority. On the grounds that your department is running a protection racket for Caldwell's personal injury law firm and kickbacks to local law enforcement. Darius interrupted. We have the wiretaps, Vance. We have the bank records. We know about the kickbacks. We know about the planted evidence. Darius turned his gaze to Harlan. And we know about Officer Briggs's enforcement techniques. Hale turned to look at Harlan. Is this the one? That's him, Nadia said, standing up. She pointed a manicured finger at Harlan. Officer Harlan Briggs. He initiated the stop without probable cause, assaulted a federal officer, filed a false report, attempted to conduct an illegal strip search, and brandished a taser against detained suspects. Hale nodded. She gestured to the tactical team. Cuff him. 2 agents grabbed Harlan. They didn't do it gently. They kicked his legs apart and slammed him against the wall, mirroring exactly what he had done to Darius earlier. Hey, watch the shoulder, Harlan yelped. You have the right to remain silent, Agent Rostova recited, tightening the zip ties until they bit into Harlan's wrists. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a federal court of law. This is a mistake, Harlan shouted as they hauled him toward the door. I was just doing my job. They looked suspicious. It was a good stop. Darius walked over to Harlan as he was being dragged out. He leaned in close. You wanted to find drugs in my car, Harlan? Darius asked softly. You wanted to be a hero? Well, you're going to be famous. You're going to be the face of police corruption in the state of Alabama. Screw you, Harlan spit at him. Darius wiped a speck of saliva from his cheek. He didn't flinch. Get him out of here, Darius said, as Harlan was shoved into the back of a black federal SUV, a cage much smaller and darker than his own cruiser. He saw them. The media, news vans were pulling up. CNN, Fox News, local affiliates. The FBI didn't just bring guns. They brought the spotlight. The story of a corrupt small-town cop arresting the FBI was too good to pass up. Back inside, the station was being dismantled. Agents were seizing computers. Files were being boxed up. Chief Garrick was sitting in a chair, head in his hands, as a state trooper read him his rights. Nadia walked over to the booking desk and picked up her badge. She clipped it onto her belt. She looked at Darius. You okay? She asked. I'm fine, Darius said. He picked up his own badge. But we're not done. Briggs is just the muscle. We need Caldwell, and we need the judge who signs off on these bogus warrants. Caldwell is at his office, Nadia said, checking her phone. The B team is raiding it right now. Good, Darius said. He looked at Officer Tara and the rookie Ellis, who were standing in the corner, terrified. Darius walked over to them. They flinched. Relax, Darius said. I know who the bad apples are. You two just stood by. That's not great. But it's not criminal yet. He handed Tara a business card. If you want to keep your badges, you're going to tell us everything. Every bribe taken. Every time Garrick looked the other way. You talk. You walk. You stay silent. You go down with them. Tara took the card. Her hands were shaking. I'll talk. I'll tell you everything. Good choice, Darius said. He turned to the door. Come on, Nadia. Let's go get our car back. I think Officer Briggs left it unlocked. As they walked out of the station into the humid Alabama afternoon, the cameras flashed. Darius didn't smile. This wasn't a victory lap. It was just the beginning of the cleanup. But for Harlan Briggs, watching through the tinted window of the federal transport, his life as he knew it was effectively over. He just didn't know how bad it was going to get. The federal courthouse in Birmingham was a stark contrast to the humid, dusty streets of Pine Creek. It was a fortress of marble and glass, air-conditioned to a crisp chill. But for Harlan Briggs, sitting at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit that was too tight, it felt oppressive. The courtroom was packed. Every seat in the gallery was taken. In the front row sat Darius and Nadia Kane, looking impeccable in tailored suits. They weren't just witnesses. They were the architects of Harlan's downfall. Behind them sat the national press. The story had gone nuclear. The dashcam footage, the very footage Harlan had hoped to use to frame them, had been leaked. YouTube had it. Twitter had it. Millions of people had watched Harlan Briggs sneer, "Don't get smart with me, boy," to a decorated federal agent. The comment section was a graveyard of Harlan's reputation. He was the most hated man in America. "All rise," the bailiff intoned. The Honorable Judge Evelyn Hart swept in. She was known as the Scalpel for her ability to cut through legal nonsense. She didn't tolerate theatrics. Harlan's lawyer was a court-appointed public defender named Mr. Finch. Harlan had tried to hire Caldwell, the personal injury lawyer he had protected for years, but Caldwell wasn't answering calls. "Mr. Finch," Judge Hart said, adjusting her glasses, "we are here for the suppression hearing. You are arguing that the dashcam footage should be inadmissible." "Yes, Your Honor," Finch said, sweating. "My client argues that the audio was altered, that he never used racial slurs, that Agent Kane provoked the confrontation to entrap a local officer." Judge Hart looked over her glasses at the prosecution table. Nadia Kane stood up. She wasn't prosecuting this specific case. That would be a conflict of interest, but she was assisting the U.S. Attorney, David Ross. "Your Honor," Ross said, standing, "we have the metadata from the SD card. We have the independent verification from the FBI's digital forensics lab, and we have a surprise witness who can speak to the authenticity of Mr. Briggs's behavior." Harlan frowned. "Witness who?" "Call Arthur Caldwell to the stand," Ross said. Harlan's heart stopped. Caldwell. The back doors opened, and Arthur Caldwell walked in. He didn't look like the confident billboard lawyer anymore. He looked shrunken. He was wearing a wiretap device that had been removed, but he was clearly cooperating. He avoided looking at Harlan entirely. Caldwell took the stand. He was sworn in. "Mr. Caldwell," Ross began, "do you know the defendant?" "Yes," Caldwell said quietly. "That's Harlan Briggs. He was on my payroll for years." A gasp rippled through the gallery. Harlan gripped the table. "You rat! You dirty rat!" "And what did you pay Mr. Briggs to do?" Ross asked. "To target out-of-towners," Caldwell admitted, his voice trembling. "Specifically, people driving expensive cars who looked like they might have insurance. He would pull them over, harass them, maybe rough them up. Then I'd send a runner to the jail to offer them my legal services to sue the city. We'd settle out of court, and Harlan and I would split the settlement money. It was a churn and burn scam." "And did Mr. Briggs have a preference for who he targeted?" Ross asked. Caldwell hesitated. Then he looked at Darius Kane in the front row. "He targeted black drivers," Caldwell whispered. "He said they were easier to scare." He said the juries in Pine Creek wouldn't believe them over a white cop. The courtroom erupted. Judge Hart banged her gavel, her face a mask of fury. Order, order in this court. Harlan felt the blood drain from his face. It wasn't just a bad stop anymore. It was a conspiracy. It was a hate crime. It was systematic corruption. Mr. Finch, Harlan's lawyer, looked at Harlan with disgust. He didn't even bother to cross-examine Caldwell. He knew the ship had sunk. Then came the coup de grace. Ross queued up the video again on the giant monitors. We would like to play the moment of the arrest one more time, specifically focusing on the defendant's reaction to the badges. The video played. The sound of Harlan screaming, "Gun!" filled the room. Then the silence. Then Darius's voice, calm and commanding. And finally, Harlan's face zoomed in and enhanced when he saw the FBI credentials. The fear in his eyes wasn't the fear of a man in danger. It was the fear of a bully who had picked a fight with a lion. "Mr. Briggs," Judge Hart said, looking directly at Harlan, "I have seen enough. The motion to suppress is denied. The evidence stands, and frankly, if I were you, I would start praying for a plea deal, because a jury is going to bury you." Harlan looked at Darius. Darius offered a small, polite nod. It was the ultimate power move. He wasn't angry anymore. He was just efficient. The sentencing hearing later was a formality. The jury had deliberated quickly. Guilty on all counts. Deprivation of rights under color of law. Conspiracy to commit extortion. Filing false police reports. Assault on a federal officer. Judge Hart didn't hold back. "Harlan Briggs, you have disgraced the uniform you wore. You used the power of the state as a weapon of terror against innocent citizens. You didn't just break the law, you broke the public trust." She sentenced him to a long term in a federal correctional institution without the possibility of parole. Harlan would be an elderly man by the time he got out, if he got out. He was processed out of the county jail and put on a bus, the Con Air transport. He was shackled, hand and foot, chained to the seat. The other prisoners on the bus eyed him. They saw the soft hands, the terrified eyes. They smelled the cop on him. Fresh meat. A tattooed man, 2 rows back, whispered. They arrived at a medium-security federal prison. It wasn't the white-collar camp Harlan had fantasized about. Because of the violence charges and the use of a weapon, he was placed in general population. The intake process was a nightmare. He was stripped naked. Ironically, the very thing he had tried to do to Nadia. He was sprayed for lice. He was given a uniform that smelled like industrial detergent and old sweat. "Name," the guard barked. He was a young black man. "Harlan Briggs," Harlan mumbled. "I was a cop. I need protective custody. You can't put me in Gen Pop." The guard looked up. He recognized the name. Everyone did. "Protective custody is full," the guard said, his face impassive. "Besides, PC is for people in danger. You're a tough guy, right? The hammer." Harlan flinched. "Please, they'll kill me." "Keep your head down and your mouth shut," the guard said, handing him a thin mattress roll. "Cell Block D, move." Cell Block D was a cacophony of noise, shouting, metal clanging on metal, the blare of televisions. As Harlan walked the tier, the noise died down. Heads turned, eyes locked onto him. News travels fast in prison. They knew who he was. They knew what he had done. He reached his cell. It was a small concrete box. His cellmate was already there, doing push-ups on the floor. He was a massive man with a shaved head and Aryan Brotherhood tattoos covering his arms. Harlan hesitated at the door. Maybe this is okay, he thought. Maybe the white gangs will protect me. The cellmate stopped doing push-ups. He stood up, wiping sweat from his forehead. He looked Harlan up and down. You the cop? The cellmate asked. Ex-cop, Harlan corrected quickly. I was framed, just like you guys. The cellmate laughed. It wasn't a friendly laugh. We don't like cops in here, the man said. But we really don't like cops who make the news. You bring heat. You bring lockdowns. I can pay, Harlan said, desperate. I have money stashed outside. Your money is gone, Briggs. A voice came from the walkway. Harlan turned. Standing at the bars of his cell was a group of 3 inmates. One of them was Latino, small, but with eyes like a shark. We saw the news, the Latino inmate said. The feds seized everything. Your house, your truck, your pension. You got nothing. Harlan sank onto his bunk. It was true. The civil asset forfeiture laws, the very laws he used to steal cash from drug dealers, had been used against him. Darius and Nadia had filed a civil suit alongside the criminal case. They had stripped him bare. So, his cellmate said, cracking his knuckles, you're broke, you're a cop, and you're famous. That's a bad combination, Harlan. That first night, the lights went out. The darkness was total. Harlan lay on his bunk, staring at the concrete ceiling. He could hear the breathing of the man below him. He could hear the shouts from down the hall. Hey, Officer Briggs, pull me over now. Someone screamed in the dark. Laughter echoed through the block. Harlan closed his eyes and saw the Range Rover. He saw the sunlight glinting off the black paint. He saw Darius's calm face. Why didn't I just let them go, he thought. Why did I have to be the big man? Regret is a bitter pill, but in prison, it's the only medicine you get. The next morning, Harlan went to the cafeteria for breakfast. He tried to sit alone. He put his tray down, watery oatmeal and a hard biscuit. He felt a shadow fall over him. He looked up. It wasn't an inmate. It was the warden. Briggs, the warden said, you have a visitor. Visitor? Harlan's heart leaped. Maybe it's a lawyer, maybe an appeal. Legal visit, the warden said. Follow me. Harlan was led to a private room. He walked in, expecting to see Mr. Finch. Instead, sitting at the metal table, looking relaxed and healthy, was Darius Kane. Harlan stopped. The guard closed the door behind him. What are you doing here? Harlan asked, his voice shaking. I promised you I'd see it through, Darius said. He didn't look angry. He looked at Harlan like one might look at a specimen in a jar. I wanted to see if the system worked. You ruined my life, Harlan whispered. No, Harlan, Darius said firmly. You ruined your life. I just turned on the lights. You were the one standing in the dark, doing dirty things. Darius slid a piece of paper across the table. What's this? Harlan asked. It's a letter, Darius said. From the Department of Justice. We're offering you a deal, a reduction in sentence. Harlan's eyes widened. What? Because Caldwell was just the middleman, Darius said, leaning forward. We want the judge. We want the mayor. We want the whole network in Pine Creek. You know where the bodies are buried, Harlan. You were the bagman. Harlan looked at the paper. If he talked, He could knock years off. He could get moved to a safer prison. But if he talked, he was a snitch, and snitches in prison. If I talk, Harlan said, sweat breaking out on his lip, they'll kill me in here. If you don't talk, Darius said, standing up and buttoning his suit jacket, you'll rot in here for your full term. And based on what I saw in the cafeteria, I don't think you'll last long. Darius knocked on the door for the guard. Think about it, Harlan. You have a short time. The offer expires when I get back to Atlanta. Darius walked out. Harlan was left alone in the room with the paper. The choice was his. Be a rat and live in fear, or be a convict and die in here. He looked at the signature line on the document, United States of America versus Harlan Briggs. He picked up the pen. The pen felt heavy in Harlan Briggs's hand, heavier than his service weapon ever had. He stared at the plea agreement lying on the metal table of the prison visitation room. The hum of the fluorescent lights overhead was the only sound, a maddening buzz that seemed to drill into his skull. Snitch. The word echoed in his mind. In the culture of the Pine Creek Police Department, being a rat was worse than being a criminal. But as Harlan sat there, shivering in his ill-fitting prison jumpsuit, a bitter realization finally washed over him. Where was Chief Garrick? Retired with a full pension before the indictments hit, or so he hoped. Where was Mayor Harlan Donovan? Probably golfing at the country club, claiming ignorance. Where was Caldwell? Singing like a bird to save his own skin. Loyalty was a lie. It was a currency the rich used to buy silence from the poor. Harlan had been the loyal soldier his whole life, the hammer who crushed anyone who threatened the status quo. And what did he have to show for it? A small cell and a terrifying Aryan Brotherhood cellmate who wanted him dead. Harlan uncapped the pen. Screw them, he whispered to the empty room. If I'm going down, I'm taking the whole damn town with me. He signed his name, Harlan A. Briggs. The ink wasn't even dry when he knocked on the door. God, I'm done. Get Agent Kane back here. Later, the storm that Darius Kane had promised finally made landfall in Pine Creek. But this wasn't just rain. It was a hurricane of federal indictments. It started early one morning on a weekday. The town was waking up, coffee brewing in the diner, school buses idling. A convoy of black SUVs, unmarked vans, and armored trucks rolled down Main Street. This time, they didn't stop at the police station. They went straight to the top. Target 1, the courthouse. FBI agents breached the chambers of Judge Roy Abernathy. Abernathy, a man who had sat on the bench for decades, signing blank warrants for Harlan Briggs to fill in later, was dragged out in his pajamas. He was found shredding documents in his home office. The image of the distinguished judge in a silk robe, being handcuffed on his front lawn, was broadcast live by the news choppers. Target 2, City Hall. Mayor Harlan Donovan was in the middle of a televised press conference, denying any knowledge of the corruption when Darius Kane walked onto the stage. Mayor Donovan, Darius said, his voice booming without a microphone. Federal warrant. Donovan froze. You can't do this here. I am the mayor. You're a racketeer, Darius corrected him. We have the ledger, Harlan. The kickbacks from the construction contracts, the payoffs from the impound lot, the cut you took from every settlement Caldwell made. It's over. Nadia Kane stepped up and slapped the cuffs on the mayor. The press cameras flashed like lightning. It was the perfect visual. The corrupt establishment falling to the very justice they had tried to pervert. Target 3, the remnants across town. The dominoes fell. the towing company owner who charged exorbitant fees and split them with the police. Arrested. The doctor who falsified sobriety tests. Arrested. Officer Parker, who had just stood by and watched. He surrendered voluntarily, tears streaming down his face, hoping for leniency. By midday, the power structure of Pine Creek had been decapitated. The good old boys network wasn't just broken, it was pulverized. Later, Harlan Briggs sat in a sterile recreation room in a federal correctional institution in West Virginia. He had been moved. Witness protection for prisoners was a lonely existence. He was in a unit with other snitches, mobsters who turned state's evidence, gang leaders who sold out their lieutenants. There was no status here, no hammer. He was just inmate number whatever. He was sweeping the floor, a job that paid pennies an hour. On the wall, a television was playing the news. Harlan stopped sweeping. On the screen was a ceremony in Washington, D.C. The Attorney General was standing at a podium. Behind him stood Darius and Nadia Kane. For their extraordinary courage and dedication to the rule of law, the Attorney General said, Special Agent Darius Kane and Senior Prosecutor Nadia Kane are awarded the Attorney General's Award for Distinguished Service. Their work in dismantling the systemic corruption in Alabama has become a model for civil rights enforcement nationwide. The camera zoomed in on Darius. He looked strong, stoic. He didn't look like a victim. He looked like a victor. Harlan leaned on his broom handle. He felt a strange emotion. It wasn't anger anymore. It wasn't even jealousy. It was resignation. He remembered the moment on the side of the road. The heat, the arrogance, the feeling that he was a god in his own little kingdom. I picked the wrong fight, Harlan thought. I saw a black man in a nice car, and I saw a criminal. I should have seen a king. Hey, Briggs, move it, a guard shouted. Floor ain't going to sweep itself. Yes, boss, Harlan muttered. He looked down at the linoleum and kept sweeping. The dust piles moved back and forth, going nowhere, just like him. Meanwhile, in Atlanta, Darius and Nadia walked out of the Department of Justice building. The ceremony was over. They had the medals in velvet boxes, but they weren't wearing them. They walked to the parking garage. Their car was waiting. A new one. A dark blue SUV. Government-issue bulletproof glass. You think he's watching? Nadia asked, tossing her bag into the back seat. Harlan. Darius paused, hand on the door handle. Yeah, I think he is. He has plenty of time to watch TV where he is. Do you feel bad for him? Nadia asked. Darius looked at her. He thought about the years of terror Harlan had inflicted on people who didn't have a badge to protect them. He thought about the fathers taken from their children, the careers ruined by false charges, the fear in the eyes of the community. No, Darius said simply. He got exactly what he ordered. We just delivered it. He got into the car. The engine purred to life. Where to next? Nadia asked, buckling up. I heard there's a sheriff in Mississippi who thinks he can seize voting machines. Darius smiled. He put the car in gear. Let's go say hello, he said. The SUV rolled out of the dark garage and into the bright, blinding light of the afternoon sun. They were hunters now, but they weren't hunting for sport. They were hunting for justice, and business was good. And that is the story of how Officer Harlan Briggs learned the hardest lesson of his life. He thought his badge made him untouchable. He thought his prejudice was patriotism, but he forgot that in the United States of America, nobody is above the law. especially not the people sworn to enforce it. Harlan is currently serving his reduced sentence. He lost his pension, his family, and his freedom. Darius and Nadia Kane continue to serve at the highest levels of the federal government, reminding corrupt officials everywhere that you never know who is behind the tinted windows of the car you just pulled over. Karma isn't just a concept. Sometimes it's a federal agent with a warrant. If you enjoyed this story of instant karma and justice served, please smash that like button. Do it for Darius and Nadia. What would you do if you were in Darius's shoes? Would you have stayed that calm, or would you have snapped? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want more stories like this, where the bad guys get exactly what they deserve, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and remember, check your bias before it checks you. See you in the next one.